John?
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Very good.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
I know. You want my, I mean, I can give you my stuff that way if you want.
Fine, put it right on here.
There you go.
My son Joel lives
You
at
need an address or just an email?
139th and Wolf, just west of
You can hand it over to Ed, okay?
Operation.
Sure.
West of Wolf.
I don't want to bother Jennifer.
The subdivision.
28 North.
Yeah,
Playground, pond, the whole thing.
yeah.
3 guys,
So, Kareem, let me ask you a question.
their kids.
So, can we, if Ed recused himself, can we just put him in there?
Three girls. Susie went to university.
Penalty box.
So Joey and Susie
what
went to
that's for?
celebration their 10th anniversary next weekend. And there's 4 couples from the subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
To Nashville for a week. And that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to get out on the plane. He was like,
And what bank are you with now?
People's.
and he was looking old.
Now, where are they?
Wasn't a lot of kids. So what he did was he looked there.
Really?
Everybody we saw running around the place was young. And of course, number 2 was probably number 1. So they was getting back into that line.
But,
Sometimes
I'll get you.
to start.
I'll invite my committee, trustees, and all
You can
that.
throw a brick and he still
Maybe
gets
get the mayor to say a few words if you would.
But the bus is good. It's the
Be
social.
nice. I'll give me your information. I'll make sure you're invited.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Or
I
what's
will.
that? Yes. Jesus
Oh, boy, this one.
You want mine?
No, I have one here. It just doesn't.
That you got it. Except, well, no. Paul's
These
gonna.
things are
Paul's gonna
20
throw a
years
wrench
old
in
now,
every
and
one of them.
they kind
Since
of.
you were way back in the day, huh?
Yeah, I was involved in buying them.
So you never have an itch to get back?
Sure, sometimes. But then I think of all the work and time, and
I'm gonna be deep in the field today.
I just got done with marathon. It's like, absolutely. I want to make sure you get it.
Need money.
You did a great job.
Yeah, it's worth 5,000.
Anything behind it, it looks like there's gonna be Here's what the problem is. You know the people in the subdivision that are on the west side?
yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Not that I'm running for office or anything, but I feel like I am. We're alive.
Yeah, I think we're finally gonna do something with that today.
That's
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What?
Which?
This? Good?
he's good.
Okay. Okay, I guess we're ready to go. Welcome, everybody, to the September 11th, 2018 meeting of the Orland Park Plan Commission. Before we start our meeting, I would ask everybody to stand for the pledge. And if you wouldn't, and before we go into the pledge, I would suggest this being September 11th. Before we do the pledge, I'm just going to ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. We can proceed. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would remind anybody if they have any electronic devices, if they mute them.
Including us.
Thank you. Okay. I move that we open our public hearing.
Second.
What about the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, approval of the minutes?
Well, I'm opening the meeting.
Oh, apologies, I apologize.
I move that we open our meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the August 14th, 2018 Plan Commission meeting.
I move they be approved as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Schuessler, second by Commissioner Shalaby. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. I move that we continue. Bear with me here, folks, without paperwork. I move that we continue file number 2018-0395, Nolan Consolidation, to the October 19th, 2018 Plan Commission meeting.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I further move that we continue file number 2018-0330, Waterfall Plaza subdivision, to December 25th, 2018 Plan Commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moved in second. Okay. The next item on our agenda is item number 2018-0470, Rocks and Brews, a special use amendment, site plan, elevations, landscape plan. Before we proceed, I would ask anybody, including staff, who wishes to speak on this subject, if you would all stand, and I would swear you in. We'll do it all at once so we don't have to do it individually. If you think you're going to say something, if you may be asked a question, and you have to say something, you know, if you're an engineer, for instance. So might as well be prepared. Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in matters before this commission? I do. Thank you. Staff would want to present on Rock and Brews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you tonight for the Rock and Brews Restaurant 2018-0470. The purpose is to construct, operate, and maintain a single-story, 6,500 square foot restaurant with a 5,000 square foot outdoor seating area located on Lot 7 of the existing Orland Crossing Shopping Center. The address is at 9520 143rd Street. The site is 1.39 acres. This site is located in our downtown planning district per the comprehensive plan, and the prescribed land use per the comprehensive plan is downtown mixed use. Important to note, too, restaurants are considered an appropriate use in this comprehensive planning district. There is no rezoning request. The property is currently zoned in the Village Center District, and it will remain. They're not requesting any change. Again, it's a restaurant, 6,500 square feet. The primary access will be to the north of the site along a private access road existing in the shopping center today. They will be requesting several modifications associated with the special use permit amendment. Those will be parking between the building and the street. They're looking for an increase in parking They're also looking in an increase in the maximum setback in 2 areas, as well as a reduction in the amount of required window transparency for the north building elevation. This slide we'd like to keep in here just to keep everyone on track of where they are in their approval process. They've gone through the petition and the planning review. They're currently in their due process at their public hearing with the Planning Commission. They will move forward from here to the Development Services Planning and Engineering Committee and ultimately go to the Village Board for final approval. This slide will give you a little context as to where the project is located. So just at 143rd Street and LaGrange Road, this is from our comprehensive planning map. The purple color indicates the downtown mixed-use land use category, and this outlines the downtown district. The arrow indicates where the site will be located. Again, just to give you a little bit of an aerial image with the surrounding zoning, it's entirely surrounded by Village Center District zoning. Again, no change being requested. And the adjacent land uses are Orland Park Crossing to the north and to the east. To the west, there's a motor vehicle fueling station, and to the south is the Marquette Bank Financial Institution. Other thing important to mention here, just for a frame of reference, will be directly across the street from the Village's downtown Main Street Triangle, and it'll be kitty corner to the previously approved Gateway Plaza, which now City Barbecue, McAllister's Deli, and the Vision Works business occupy. So what you see on this slide is the site plan that they're proposing. Again, point out that the primary, let's see. There we go. So the primary vehicular access point will be from the north here that will lead onto a private drive that connects to the 95th Avenue entrance to the Orland Park Crossing Shopping Center. They've also made provisions for sidewalk connections that will allow pedestrians. Yes. Okay, yeah, I see. So some sidewalk connections here that will work with the crosswalks that will lead to the north as well as connect to other areas of the shopping center. Their primary sidewalk connection that will lead to the main entrance and also leads out to 143rd Street. What they have done in this plan is attempted to move the building as close to 143rd Street as possible, and they're trying to maximize this outdoor seating area. So this entire area here and these pavers will be their outdoor seating. In general, for the site plan, they are, for the most part, they've provided for the appropriate aisle widths. They've met the Village Land Development Code as closely as possible, and in the next slide, I'll get into some of the modifications that they're requesting and their justification for those. So first of all, they're increasing the required parking, or they're asking for an increase in the maximum allowable parking on the site from 65 spaces to 85 spaces. What they're basing this off of is previous locations based on the size of the building and what they've experienced and the amount of demand that is necessary for the parking. In addition to that, this site is unique in the shopping center because while we typically encourage a shared of parking amongst the uses, generally they would either have to come from the north and cross this northern access drive or cross one of the primary access points into the shopping center, which although it is possible and they are providing for someone to do that, it's once you put some of these obstacles in place crossing those roads, people tend not to use those shared parking that we would recommend. So in addition to that, they are, with the increased parking spaces, they are increasing their lot coverage. They are still within the allowable limit. They are over 75%, but the Village Center District allows them to go up to 80% if they utilize a best stormwater management best management practice, which they are doing so with the proposed bioswale. So although they're increasing their lot coverage and they're asking for more parking, they are mitigating that, and the modification seems reasonable. The next two that I'll describe associated with the site plan, basically the way the site sits today serves as justification. So first of all, They are requesting a modification for parking located in between the building and the street on this east side as well as on the north side. And in looking at the site plan, with roads being on the north, south, and east sides of the building, where they would position their building would almost require at least one modification to that section of the code. And as I stated before, the reason for that code provision to exist is to help create that street edge and push the building as close to a primary roadway as possible. And they've attempted to do that in moving it towards 143rd Street. The next modification that they're requesting is an increase in the front setback and the north side setback which is actually limited in the Village Center District as a maximum. So again, this is a provision that was put into specifically in the Village Center District that limits the maximum setback to 15 feet from the property line of the roadway, and that's to, again, create that street edge. It's only required on, actually along 143rd Street, the 15-foot setback is a 15-foot minimum, but on other interior pedestrian-oriented streets, it's a 15-foot maximum. Again, if you envision this, if them trying to meet this setback requirement along all edges of the building, given that it's surrounded by roadways, it would be very difficult or be a very unfeasible site plan for them to create. Something along an L shape along this area, leaving the parking to front along 143rd Street would be an option that would be code compliant, but it wouldn't be the most functional site. So it seems that they would be, staff would support those types of modifications. The elevations are depicted on this next slide. I would like to first of all start off by the primary building material, which is indicated here along in this darker gray black color, as well as along this primary elevation and along the wall surrounding the outdoor seating area is a Harvard brick material. This is a precast concrete masonry material that is made to look as though it's traditional brick. So they're utilizing that material, and just to reiterate for the record that this is compliant with the building code currently, and they did work with our building division when coming up proposing this material. So although it's not typical that we see this type of material used, it is compliant with the Land Development Code design standards as well as the Village of Orland Park building code. As you can see, what they're trying to do here, aside from the Harvard brick material, they're utilizing a red corrugated metal. That's this paneling that you'll see here, and as well as here. And really the purpose of that material is to further communicate their brand. That color is very important in their brand, and that's why they chose to use it as an accent in their building architecture. One interesting feature that they are incorporating is the guitar feature. So this is proposed to be 55 feet tall, which does meet the maximum height for a building that's located on a corner in the Village Center District. So they are compliant in terms of the height. This feature will be attached to the building, and it is not depicting any of the language associated with any signage or anything along those lines. Referencing the staff report, the village has set precedent in approving different elements, architectural elements that aren't necessarily, that do communicate a business's brand. For example, the P.F. Chang's, there's a monument at P.F. Chang's. There's also one at Twin Peaks. At Rock Bottom, they've used the stills and things like that. So this is not uncommon for the village to approve these types of architectural features. Let's see here. And then the other somewhat interesting use I guess a new use for something that we're used to seeing. Right here, as depicted here, as well as here, what the exterior material will appear to be will be very similar to the corrugated metal siding that you see on the building. And these actually are repurposed storage containers or shipping containers. And what they're using them for is, this one will be converted into actually a bar so the interior will look just as a normal bar. The exterior will again resemble the corrugated metal paneling that you will see from 103rd Street, but the interior will just be like a normal bar, and the other will be cut out for actual seating. So chairs and tables and things like that will be placed inside. So those are actually, although they appear from the exterior that they're shipping containers, they're not being used for storage. They're actually being used to functionally as part of the outdoor seating. As you could see, the east elevation will be the primary entrance into the facility. Again, the Harvard brick material is the primary building material, but they will also be utilizing just the precast concrete that will be finished in a red stucco to communicate their brand with the red stucco with a smooth finish to communicate their brand. This was a compromise work between the developer and the village. By requiring all of the masonry, but still allowing an accent material that further communicates what they're trying to do in terms of their branding. Let's see if there's anything else. Again, they're utilizing a significant amount of storefront glazing to enhance basically the back wall interior of this will be built out and decorated in the rock and roll theme. And that will be something that will be visible not only to the outdoor seating, but it'll also be visible along, further communicating that, again, that brand and that theme that they're going for. There is one modification that's associated with the elevations, and I'll further explain what's happening there. So basically, the modification that they're requesting is the Village Center District Code requires that between 4 and 8 feet from the adjacent grade in height, it's required to have 35% of the building facade be transparent. So the intent is to add windows to the location, but the reason that they're requesting a modification is that this elevation is actually where where a majority of their back house operations will take place. The red gates indicate where the garbage enclosure will be, and then these two other areas are where their walk-in cooler and their freezer will be. So again, those are generally areas that we require to be screened. And in this instance, they are proposing not to add any windows here, and not to add any transparency so that you're not seeing those types of operations. The other thing that I wanted to point out with the two arrows is that on the original submittal, they had not been proposing windows indicated where on the slide where the arrows are pointing. And as a compromise, because they couldn't meet the required transparency at that height, they did add those at the village's request. Just make sure. Another one item I want to point out too is they've indicated these areas here outlined that they intend to install artwork associated with rock and roll themed sort of images and graphics and things like that. As of right now, they are just seeking approval as you see it today. There is a condition in the elevation approval that they will have to come back with elevations that show exactly what they're proposing, and they'll go through an administrative appearance review with development services to get that approved. I wanted to highlight lastly is the landscape plan. As you can see, they're making every effort what you see here is compliant in terms of the land development code and has been recommended by the village's landscape consultant for preliminary landscape plan approval. So they're not requesting any modifications associated with the landscape plan, and they are also providing, again, as I mentioned before, the bioswale to help manage their stormwater and to mitigate some of the increase in lot coverage that they're proposing. So staff's recommendation recommends approval of the special use permit amendment for Orland Crossing, a site plan, elevations, and landscape plan with the previously described modifications. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you.
If the petitioner is present and they would like to make any comments to the committee, they're welcome to do so. Would the petitioner like to come up to the microphone at this time? Okay, no? Is there, it's a public hearing. I don't think there's anybody from the public. I think you're all from the company, so without there being any representatives from the general public, I'll turn it over to our, I would ask, first of all, staff, you've given us a list in our packet of a number of modifications, and you've addressed them all. And is staff satisfied with the petitioner's adherence to those modifications?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over now to our commissioners. We'll start with Commissioner Zamparelli.
Very nice plan. I just have two simple questions. There's a lot of residents to the east, and I'm curious about sound. Anything outdoor? There's 5,000 square feet outdoor. Any address on that? Anything?
Well, I guess they would be subject to any sound restrictions that the village has before.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would be subject to the restrictions on the Village Land Development Code, and we have other businesses that have outdoor seating areas that don't seem to generate a lot of complaints.
Okay. Now there's that little driveway there. There's 2 speed bumps or 4 speed bumps. Are they going to remove those? Because it seems like they send it to slow down the traffic for everybody rushing over to get to Starbucks. But I don't see an advantage to keeping those now with this traffic. I don't think speed bumps work when you got a big flow of traffic. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Would you remove personally, I can't stand them.
If you would speak, we need your name and address.
Ramsey Hassan, 15616 Julie's Way, Orland Park, Illinois.
Thank you.
Sure. We put in the speed bumps to do exactly that, slow down traffic. It was pretty dangerous, especially if there's any pedestrians. There's a lot of loading in and out, in the rear of the stores. That's where the trash is. That's where we require all the loading to be. If we feel like that safety issue has been nullified, we would remove that.
I just think it just slows the traffic flow down once there's a lot of cars coming in and out of there. It's good now, but that's...
Yeah, or we may consider moving them down, farther, maybe not right in front of Rock and Brews or those entrances, but down in that kind of turnaround to kind of slow down people from driving too fast around the corner.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Murphy.
So it is a great project. I do have a question about the I guess it's the north elevation, if you can put that back up there. So, we talk about the transparency, and I certainly understand that they have backup operations that they need to conceal, but have they entertained perhaps that same kind of graphic thing that they're going to do on the east elevation on that wall, or perhaps introducing another color or material just to break it up?
Actually, yes, I'm sorry I didn't point that out, but there are 2 spots along that elevation that they are proposing the same artwork.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That
Not
will-
the same artwork, but 2 different spots where they will put artwork.
Also subject to the same village approval?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. It's a great project. Thank you.
Assume that'll be the east and west elevations?
And then portions of the storage container as well that will be visible will be, there will be graphics placed on there and artwork.
Nope, thank you.
Commissioner Schussler?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, could we get confirmation from the staff and the petitioner that they have mailed or posted any required notices?
They did, the petitioner did send the affidavit to me that acknowledged that they did send the notice and post the sign, and I physically saw it. I also, another thing wanted to reiterate that I didn't mention before, is that they have been granted preliminary engineering approval as well.
Okay, I was just asking that for the record, so we confirmed it. Question about the outdoors. First of all, I agree it's a good project. It is a difficult site to work with. I've driven by it hundreds of times, always wondering what was going to be there. Wondering how long it would take you, Ramsey, to get something there. My question is about the outdoor seating area. Commissioner Zamparelli asked about sound. Is there going to be music for the outside seating area? Will there be speakers out there?
There will be, there will be speakers out there.
matter, still gotta meet the
Live
code.
music from time to time as well.
Okay, my second question is about the amount of seating between 143rd Street and the building. And I'm thinking of what was recently built on LaGrange Road, Chewy's Tex-Mex, Miller's Mailhouse, PDQ. They all have seating right along LaGrange Road, and you hardly see anybody using it because I would think it would be noisy, and you have the fumes from the traffic. So I wonder how functional that is really going to be. It's nice to have outside seating, but it has to be something that people are going to find enticing before they'll use it. So isn't there some way that we can get more of the seating away from 143rd and more on the side, either side of the building? Either forget about the bioswale. I understand staff likes that. I like bioswales too, but if it comes to having a functional seating area as opposed to the bioswale, I'd say go with the functional seating area. So my question is there a possibility of getting more of the seating on either side of the building as opposed to so much of it out in the front? And that's probably something the architect, who I assume is sitting back here, will have to answer whether that's even feasible. And then secondly, Ramsey, you'd have to answer the question whether you think that would be a good
We swear you
idea.
in, of course.
Sure. Hi, Peter Zelenko.
I'm swear you in, just your name and address. We already swore you in.
Okay, yeah, Peter Zelenko, Group Z Design Architecture, in 212 North Sangamon, Chicago, Illinois.
Thank you.
So,
Ed, would you give him the pointer?
okay.
So my issue is I don't think they're going to use the seating out in the front because of the noise. So is it possible to get more of it on either side by shifting the building one way or the other?
I think there is an overhang here that is going to help protect the seating and create more of a welcoming, enticing area. The bar is right here. So the glass that's in front of the building is actually kind of creating an outdoor room here. There's also seating along the west side. There's intimate seating within that shipping container. And there's also seating along the east side. So the main restaurant dining area is right here. The back of house, the kitchen is right there, and the main bar is kind of right in the center. So it makes sense to have the outdoor seating and dining kind of overflow from the interior. So the function of the building and the space is kind of leading it to putting it on those sides. And it also, I think it's something that Orland Park is interested in, is kind of creating a streetscape and a downtown feel. So we felt like that was in support of that concept of the village code and the ordinance.
Okay, you can put it wherever you want. It meets code, that's fine. I'm just saying people might not be wanting to use it if it's very noisy. You get a lot of noise from 143rd Street traffic.
I hate this word.
So it might look real nice, but it might not be real functional in the long run.
The tenant has had experience with a number of these throughout the country, so there's some reasoning for putting the seating where it is right now.
Okay, thank you.
Their idea.
Thank you, Commissioner Schussler. Commissioner Shalby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, my question was going to be along the lines of Commissioner Schussler's question about the lack of feasibility that we're seeing with seating being in close proximity to a major thoroughbred road like 143rd, like LaGrange Road. But the architect was so nice to answer that concern of mine. Otherwise, I think it's an interesting concept. Is Rock and Brews, what's the origin, just out of curiosity? Is it in other states? Like Tennessee or?
They're from California.
Oh, cool, okay.
We we have Sully, the CEO of Rock and Brews, he can speak to the.
No, just.
Sure, why don't we
yeah.
get a little background?
Again, I want
you-
to say,
Yes, and we need you've already sworn in.
Michael Sullivan. Yeah, I swore in.
You swore in, so we just need your name and address and who you
Michael,
represent.
Michael Sully Sullivan. I'm the CEO and president of Rock and Brews. And I live in 49 Fitz, Chicago Heights. Grew up in the South Side. When I was 21 years old, I opened my very first restaurant right here in Orland Park on 143rd and Wilcook Road. So I'm extremely excited to bring Rock and Brews here. This is why I've been pushing so hard for Orland Park. This is where I met my wife. She was a customer at Subway. I owned the Subway down there when I was 21. I went on to open 18 restaurants. I opened over 1,200 restaurants for Buffalo Wild Wings. And I'm recently the owner and CEO of Rock and Brews. Partnered, of course, with a few interesting characters that are very famous. And, we definitely have a very exciting brand here. And one of the things that we do that's unique, and to answer your question, and thank you for asking it, is by putting that bar out front like we do, it actually draws people out to the front of the restaurant. So that area is covered, so even when it's raining, you feel like you're inside. We fill the ceilings with heaters and misters that, regardless of what the temperature is, it always feels like it's 74 degrees. In our Orlando restaurant, it was 97 degrees last time I was there with a heat index of 109, and the entire patio was full because the misters that we put in are very high tech. We use only the best to give the consumer and our guest a really comfortable feel. So regardless of what the temperature is outside, you have that feel because of the cover. And one of the things, and you bring up a great point about the fumes and the smell, and our traditional site, the wall that goes around the outside of the building is 8 feet high with windows so you could see through and see the action, but at the same time it takes the air and the wind above the guests so that they're not getting swept away by Chicago wind, and that takes away from a lot of the smell that you may get from cars. We do have most all of our restaurants have this type of seating that goes right up to the street, because seeing people and seeing guests in the front and hearing the music as you're driving by with your window down makes you go, that looks like a cool place to go. And we create this ultimate concert experience. So when you come into Rock and Brews, you feel like you're at a concert. You kind of get that, you hear the music and everyone's singing along to it, and they're high-fiving with the person next to them. Oh, it's Journey. All right, yeah, we're killing it. I can't stop believing. So, I mean, it's a really fun, exciting atmosphere. And as far as the question to the sound and everything to the east, as you can see, most of our seating is towards the front and to the left. So most of it is all blocked from the housing that's going to be to the east.
Where would the band stand? Where would you set up the band?
If we were setting up bands, we would probably be putting it somewhere near, like where that shipping container is. You don't want to put it too far inside the building because it blows out the people that are inside the restaurant. Your regular guests that are in there dining, they don't want to be listening to, live music. But we like to have the live music kind of become like a beer garden feel. We only do it for a couple hours on the weekend nights, and we don't do it late at night. We do find that live music, scares away your families that want to come in and just enjoy, but you want to be able to tell people that we have live music. So we'll do it for an hour and a half, a couple nights a month. But it's, and we make sure they're good bands too, so.
Did you say there's going to be a wall around the outside seating area?
Well, we had originally proposed an 8-foot wall around it, but I believe the city required us to go down to a 4-foot wall. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're still working through all of that with Ramsey and with.
Well, maybe you could compromise on 6 feet with the staff,
Yeah, I mean.
as long as you put windows in it.
Yeah, we do. We break it up with windows, so it's like you have the cement and then you have a big window so you could see through. And
Ed,
it just.
Ed, did you want to comment on that?
I was just going to say the maximum height in the Village Center District for outdoor seating areas for fencing
That's
is
it.
4 feet. So that's why. That's
Okay.
Well, whatever height you have, it seems like that would deaden some of the sound that would be coming off the roadway. So that's good. If I'd known that, I wouldn't have asked my question.
No, I just thought I'd throw the
Because
plug in for it.
you can't tell from the plan that there's going to be a wall there.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
just
no,
not that detail.
yeah, again, it's about blocking out, giving people a comfortable seating area. When you thought, I was just at Miller Ale House last week, sitting out on their patio, and they have just the fenced kind of
Yeah.
patio.
It's noisy.
Yeah, it's noisy. It's not a very comfortable feel, but we want to create that experience that the guest feels like they're outside, they're hearing live music. It's kind of like being at Ravinia, or at, I don't know what they call it now. I still call it Tweeter Center, First Midwest, Third Rate Field, or
Yes.
It's Hollywood,
yeah,
Thank you.
whatever it is over there now. But
Changes yearly.
yeah. So we, again, like I said, we're trying to create and bring life to that corner. And
I wouldn't sit down yet. We got a couple more commissioners who might have questions for you, so
All right.
I wouldn't get comfortable yet.
I'm-
Do you have anything else, Commissioner Shalaby?
No, thank you for the passionate, animated presentation, and it's really nice to see that parcel developed. I pass by it almost every day, and I think it's going to be a great complementary to the entire plaza, which is what we're hoping for as well, so for all of Orland Park Crossing. So, good luck.
What number is this in the chain? What number will this be?
this would be number 23.
23.
We currently have 5 stores under construction right now.
Any others in Illinois?
Oak Lawn,
Oh.
and Kissimmee, down by Disney World, is opening up in October. And we have 2 others in California under construction right now. So we're having a lot of fun.
Good. Commissioner Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like the elevations as they are. I would assume that you have a marketing department that sort of figures out how to arrange all of this stuff. If it doesn't work, I'm sure they'll figure out something else. But I'm good with it. I think the modifications that you're requesting are fair. I think parcel's been sitting there for a long time. I think we can work with that to make something that's usable and workable for all of us there. And that's really all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Ogden?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of observations rather than questions. Number one, we did get our notices out to our folks in the area.
That's correct.
And I'm just going to do a quick perusal of the room. Not a whole lot of objectors. There isn't one in the building. Also, in this petition that I'm looking at, that I'm going to read here tonight, there are 13 conditions that our staff has asked this petitioner to adhere to. He's not commented on any one of them. So the modifications and everything else that goes along with this project. The seating, I think you made a great explanation of how you're going to do that. If you've got 20-some stores, I'd say you've done some things right. And full speed ahead, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most of my fellow commissioners have pretty much covered a lot of thoughts I had, and I must say that I really appreciate your passion for what you do, and I'm always happy to see that it's nice. You said you always wanted to be, it's great to Orland Park to be a place where somebody wants to come and not somewhere where somebody wants to leave. That's pretty neat. What are your hours of operation?
We'll be open probably 10 a.m. till about 11. We'll probably start out opening until 1 a.m. just to see if we can get a night crowd, but I don't think we're going to get much of a night business up there, so we'd probably, you always start later and then work it back. I think the liquor license will take us till 2, but we'll stay open till 1, but then we'll probably trail it back to 11 o'clock or so. We're more family-driven than, we don't want to become the new Fat Sam's or whatever that place was over there. That's not our objective.
Did you hear a slam of a competitor?
They're gone now.
When do you anticipate you'll be completed with this project?
Like to be open in April.
April.
Yeah.
Pretty ambitious.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm very aggressive. I'm used to opening 100 restaurants a year, so right now I'm opening 5 is kind of slowing me down a little bit. I got to get rolling. But we're having a lot of fun. It's a great concept, and it's a really fun brand. And people really, it's the one genre, rock and roll, that nobody hates. So
Great.
I've never
Well,
heard
thank you.
anyone say I hate rock and roll.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it as well, and I'm glad to see that parcel, which has just been for years just overrun with weeds and everything, being used in such a good manner.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Robin.
I move to accept as findings of fact
Commissioner
that the
Parisi,
Planning
excuse me
Commission,
one
the
second.
findings
I
of
just-
fact
I
set
have one thing
forth
to
in the
add.
staff report.
One thing, yeah, I just wanted to, before you went into the motion, that
Yes.
I provided, the petitioner did provide responses to the special use standards to amend the special use and associated with all the modifications, and they've been included in his attachment as the findings of fact,
And you,
including with the findings of fact.
and staff has reviewed those replies and accepted them all.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Robin, want to start again?
I've never been interrupted before. This
Well, this
is,
is the first time for everything.
I move to accept as findings of fact this Planning Commission, the findings of fact set forth in the staff report dated September the 11th, 2018, and I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of the preliminary site plan submitted by the petitioner, prepared by Wolpert, titled Site Improvement Plans, Rock and Brews, and dated August the 20th, 2018, subject to the following conditions. Number one, that you meet all final engineering and building code related items. Number two, that all parking lot lighting must meet Village Center District standards.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Robin, a second by Commissioner Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed.
And I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of the elevations titled rendered elevation shown on sheet A 2.4, prepared by Group Z Design and dated August the 20th, 2018, subject to the following conditions, and all changes must be made prior to the board meeting. Number one, screen all mechanical equipment either at grade level with landscaping or hidden behind the roof line. And number two, all masonry must be of anchored veneer type masonry with 2.625-inch minimum thickness. And three, signs are subject to additional review and approval via the sign permitting process, and additional restrictions may apply. Number four, guitar feature must meet all land development code requirements. Number five, exterior roof ladder shown on the north elevation must be relocated to the interior of the building. And number six, submit for appearance review for approval of artwork proposed on the elevations.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Continue.
I move to recommend to the Village Board approval of an amendment to the special use permit for plan development for Orland Crossing to allow the construction of Rock and Brews Restaurant on Lot 7 in Orland Crossing as depicted on the preliminary site plan of the following variances as depicted on the preliminary site plan titled the preliminary site plan submitted by the petitioner, prepared by Wolpert, titled Site Improvement Plan Rock and Brews and dated August 20th, 2018, with the following modifications. One, parking between the building and the street on the north side setback and east front setback. Two, increase in the amount of parking spaces from 65 to 85. Three, increase in front yard setback from 15 feet to approximately 195 feet. Number four, increase in north side yard setback from 15 feet to 82 feet. And number five, reduce the required building facade transparency on the north elevation from 35% to 0. This only applies to building facade between 4 and 8 feet from the adjacent grade, and all of these changes must be made prior to the board meeting.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, congratulations.
Thank you, guys. I'm looking forward to coming home. I said I'm looking forward to coming home.
Okay,
So are we.
welcome, hey,
So are we.
welcome
Orland
aboard.
Park's my home.
Two more steps to go.
They're
Two more
being-
steps. Committee and the board, and then you'll be on your way.
Anything you need from me?
Yes. Okay, there being no other motions before us for public hearing, I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hoffman, and it's unanimous.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion, pardon? Yeah, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
She wants to close the meeting.
Commissioner Schuessler, second. Unanimous. Great. Good.
Nice work.
Jennifer, need 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes. No, you're not. I need to talk to you. 5 minutes. Just wave it, please. No.
Oh, okay. I thought you turned it off when we were talking. Yeah, that's funny. I missed that. I just thought we were
Oh, really?
cool.
I like his passion. That's my wife. See Ed? Ed?
Yes, sir.
Not cool.
I was looking throughout my entire packet before we started the meeting. Yeah, the guys from